Hi, my name is Ryan Gagne, and I'm a person in long-term recovery and also the founder of Live Free Recovery Services. We're located in Manchester and Keene, New Hampshire. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about the story that I've had coming from somebody in active addiction and into recovery, and the life that I get to experience now, and some of the people that are responsible for helping me get started in that. In 2008, my sobriety date's March 7th, 2008. And on that day, I had gone to turn myself into my probation officer, who had been dealing with me unsuccessfully on my part for the better part of roughly about 8 years. The difference of that day was after multiple, somewhere between 8 and 10 times of trying to be in recovery and being unsuccessful and relapsing and finding myself back incarcerated and in trouble with the court systems and catching new charges and always seeming to try to escape a life that I couldn't quite get out of. I felt like I was in a quicker and deeper quicksand than I'd ever been in before. So I had woke up that day after attempting to end my own life on March 6th, and unsuccessfully. I woke up. I found that I wasn't able to really successfully do anything in life, and when it came to trying to check out of this life, I was even unsuccessful at that. I was in a low point that I had never experienced before. I had woke up, and my father had let me know that my probation officer had reached out to him to let him know that he was still in search of trying to find me. And I decided that I was just going to go and turn myself in. Um, at least if I could be incarcerated, everything would be okay. I wouldn't have to feel like I was just always on the run and trying to avoid everybody. And so I made my way to National Probation and Parole. Went in. Everybody that was there was surprised to see me. Usually, it wasn't always a good thing when I was coming in. I haven't checked in probably close to 6 months. We sat out back, and they asked what I was doing there, and I just explained I couldn't do this anymore. The idea was that I was going to go and serve a mandatory 5-year prison sentence for a previous charge that I had if I couldn't complete probation, and that was the best idea that I could come up with. Kind of shows you where my head was at, where my mind was at. That seemed to be the only solution to the problem, is that if I could get locked up somewhere and be away from everybody else, society, my family, the friends that I thought that I hadn't seen in years anyways, that everybody else would be safe from me, and including myself. I didn't feel like I could trust myself or anybody else, and so that seemed like the only logical move to make. Unbeknownst to me that day, that was going to be removed as an option. My probation officer came back in and said, we've been watching you do this for a long time, and why don't you give treatment one more time and give it another shot? And I declined, and which everybody was kind of baffled at. I didn't think it was going to work. I didn't think that I was going to ever experience the life that I wanted to experience. I didn't think I was going to ever find out what it was going to be like to be in recovery, and I just didn't think it was for me. I met people that started to show me a different way of life. I then was also mandated to go to a program that was in Dover, New Hampshire, Southwestern Community Services, or the Dover Crisis Center. And that was a long-term residential 90-day inpatient treatment facility with a 6-month halfway house. And the differences that I found was, one, I was accountable to people. People held me to doing work and actual change in my life, where prior to, I thought sobriety and recovery was about drugs and alcohol. And I found that when I get removed of drugs and alcohol, my problems actually just start. My external problems, I may stop becoming incarcerated and those kind of things, but internally, I don't feel right. that there's this thing that's inside that would happen to me was that once you remove drugs and alcohol, which has been my solution for so long, I can't differentiate anything that's happening internally. It's all a mess inside. And the only relief that I know that will come to me is if I actively go seek drugs and alcohol, which will bring me that relief. But the only problem with that is that I can't just use it once or twice. I continue to use it and use it and use it until that cycle is broken. And I found that was the cycle of addiction. There's an internal malady, there's an internal problem with that happens. And until I have a solution for that, or until I actually experience what it's like to be not just in sobriety, but actually move into recovery and change, that I can't seem to fix any of the internal portion. And so I was in this treatment facility that I spent the better part of 90 days in the inpatient side. Um, on the day that I was graduating, my counselor came over and he said, I have some good news and bad news. And I said, oh, I know, I know this story. What's the bad news? And he says, well, the bad news is that we have the bed upstairs for you. And I said, what's the good news? He says, well, you've been released off of probation. Why were you afraid to tell me that? And they said, well, we were afraid that if we told you that you were off of probation, that you wouldn't accept the bed upstairs and that you would just run. Um, and I had looked at my counselor, and I just said to him, Walter, where would I go? I don't really have anybody else besides you people. And it clicked for me for the first time that I was making decisions. I had been making decisions for probably the better part of a month and a half that were for myself and not for because somebody else was making them for me. And there was at some point in time the recovery process had already started to work on me before I was even aware of the recovery process working. And I started to make what seemed to be smarter decisions. I, I I have all the things I've ever wanted. When I used to sit back and think to myself, like, this was supposed to be, if I could just be neutral, if I could just live like a somewhat average life, that would have been really cool. Um, and now I think back, like, that was such a small thought because the life that I experience now, I have amazing people in my life. I have the family that I've always wanted, and my family back in my life, and have been counted on. If you were to ask me back in 2008, would this ever be possible? I would have told you that you were absolutely crazy. You're talking about somebody else's life. This isn't my life, and now I'm forever thankful for the decisions that were made in that back office with national probation and parole to not stick me in a cell for another 3.5 years, and to give me a shot at recovery even when I didn't even want it, and doing diversion before diversion was really even a thing. I'm forever grateful for that experience.